Welcome to Step Up to the Sport, a conversation series bringing together the minds of women's baseball and women in baseball. I'm Kate Haines, the moderator and host for today's conversation, and the archivist for the International Women's Baseball Center.
Our guest today is Ryan Woodward, and we'll be discussing Women in Baseball Week. Ryan created the inaugural Women in Baseball Week in 2017, which is an annual worldwide event recognizing the value, diversity, and cultural significance of women in baseball. Tournaments, teams, libraries, museums, and individuals join the International Women's Baseball Center to recognize women's contributions to baseball around the globe. Ryan continues to develop projects commemorating women in baseball, including the induction of the former AAG PBL player Anna Mae Hutchinson into the Kentucky Sports Hall of Fame, class of 2020. His article, Louisville Sluggers and Kentucky Rifles, Rediscovery and Celebration of the Bluegrass States All-American Girls, appeared in the 2022 Women in Baseball volume of 9, a journal of baseball history and culture. Ryan is a member of the Society for American Baseball Research and the International Women's Baseball Center and served on the IWBC Board of Directors for 6 years. Originally from Kentucky, Ryan is a librarian and an educator in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So welcome, Ryan. Good to have you here, and let's dive into the conversation.
Thank you very much, Kate. Good to see you again. I would say it's been such a long time because of pandemic, but we've seen each other a couple of times in the past year, so I'm very happy about that.
I think we might talk way more often now than prior to the pandemic. So it's always good to see you, though, especially when we're talking about baseball. So really, let's just kind of dive into it now. It is the second day of Women in Baseball Week at the point in time that people will be seeing this. So let's just give us a little bit of background on the week itself and maybe kind of how the worldwide participation has kind of played into it as you've done it for the last 6 years.
Sure. Yeah, no small task, right? I can't believe, it's year 6 already. So I think one place, this was occurring to me today. I was sending emails earlier today with new people who are involved in Women in Baseball Week and what can they do, or we're planning to do this, and can you share some of the content? Of course I can, And every year I say I'm going to take the week off because it is like a full-time job, Women in Baseball Week is, and I never do. And so I'm just glued to my phone and forwarding things and making sure I'm liking everything and responding as appropriate. But it made me think how I get asked a lot, and I'm sure you do too, with the work that we've both done, how to get more girls involved in baseball at a grassroots level is a big topic that comes up a lot. And I always have to say, I'm afraid that, it's just the enormous task of changing the culture. That's a large part of how do we get more girls involved in the grassroots level. And if anyone knew how to do that, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now because it would have happened already. But I think we can chip away at it by normalizing the idea of girls playing baseball, which should not be a new thing, should not be a novel thing, at this point, but guess what it is? Good news is there's a lot of people working on that. Different organizations down to the personal level, and it increases more and more every year. This network we have, this worldwide baseball family. So I'm thrilled at that. I'm not a very patient person, so it's never good enough, but we are getting there, and I recognize that. So, but yeah, normalizing the idea of girls playing baseball, and how do we do that? There's teams, organizations I've mentioned already. They need your support, money, of course, but support can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? So ultimately, Women in Baseball Week was an attempt to build that network. It lets people know they're not alone, which is a big thing, and lets the rest of us know how we can best help those organizations. So this started as a small idea. You were around. We were both working with IWBC and other organizations at the time. We have been for years now. So this was just a really small idea. It was just an awareness campaign that we were going to do on social media, but it's taken off in the years since, which is really cool. I joined the IWBC board in 2016. We can talk more about that later. Which is right around the time I think we met, because we met 2015, 2016. But so the first year I'm on the board, big surprise, like I don't do a lot and I don't even really participate in the meetings. I just kind of sit back and, watch everybody else do their thing. There's a lot of amazing, intense personalities involved with that group, and we love them and we love the work that they do. But, I'm kind of a more quiet, reserved type anyway. So yeah, I wasn't gonna dive right in. So by the second year I'm in there, wanted to work on something that was more my level, something that I was comfortable doing. And I was just finishing library school at the University of Pittsburgh, spring of 17, when the idea occurred to me. And because I was finishing library school, I first reached out to a lot of libraries and museums that first year, including the Cardinals Hall of Fame and Museum, because they had a special exhibit that I had seen online that was going on in St. Louis about women in baseball. And yeah, that was the idea. Needless to say, I got immediately spoiled when the first post I ever saw about Women in Baseball Week in 2017 was from the St. Louis Cardinals. That's like a hard thing to beat, like nice surprise, and get used to that because it's only up from here, and it kind of has been. So that's what's crazy about it. But the idea behind involving libraries, archives, museum was first, those were the spaces I felt most comfortable approaching and knew how to talk to, as I'm sure you do, but also too, in the spirit of further normalizing women in baseball. This seemed like a good way to celebrate the event beyond the playing field, right? Literally everyone can participate. And so what you see happening every year now is greater awareness that there are books written about this, there are films, there are fields and venues named after women with connections to baseball. There's a girls team in my area now, and as we're more and more seeing, like if you live in the UK, if you live in certain parts of Africa, if you live all over Australia and Asia now, you're going to find women's national teams springing up, and it's the coolest thing ever. So that's how it started. Everything is a small start at first, and I think that's good. There's an organization, this is one of the favorites because they've been with me since the beginning, Sporty Girl Books. They do online recommendations and readings. It's really just about highlighting books about girls in sports and catering to girls in sports who want to just see themselves reflected in the stories, in the histories and the books written about them. So they participate each year, highlight books about women and girls on social media. And at first, like when you check out their social media feeds, you'll see one or two comments about, I've never heard of these books before, and I'm going to go check them out now. And so it builds, really, this normalization, maybe very slowly, but it builds. And that's been the coolest part for me, is that everyone is highlighting the prevalence of women in baseball in various parts of the culture. And I just want to see increased participation across the board. What stands out to me every year has been the international response, like I sort of talked about already. People and organizations, particularly across Canada, really came out in like the last 2 years. And I think I even posted last year, the weekend before it started, I was having conversations with people, friends, other participants, literally, this was in Asia, Australia, Central America, Africa, Europe, touching them all. And it's been a really cool thing. Like a no pressure, but seemingly big results kind of project. And I just didn't see this coming, and I'm so glad it has, though.
That's awesome. And, I think a lot of us that work in this type of environment often, have that kind of response to that we're not doing enough, even though we are making these kinds of impacts. And, you're doing exactly what you need to be doing because you are growing each year and whatnot. And I remember kind of talking to you that first year, that you kind of reached out, you're like, I kind of have this idea. We had been talking a little bit more because I was getting ready to go to library school because I headed to the University of Michigan that summer 2017. And it made sense too, when you were explaining it to me about putting, Women in Baseball Week in library spaces and museum spaces and archive spaces, especially because when I think of Women in Baseball Week, and it might be from those kind of original things, I do see those library displays that we all know if we ever went to a public library. And so some of your other comments, like Sporty Girl books, kind of seems like that same type of thing. It's a digital version of a display, and that's awesome. And then of course you're getting connections internationally, so the UK, I know that Luis Lopez's team has also participated down in Nicaragua, Canada, freaking St. Louis Cardinals. So clearly we are making those connections across the board. It's a great, fun way to kind of participate. But how do we learn about those events other than people getting involved? Where's the central location for people to go find out what's going on for Women in Baseball Week?
So the easiest thing to do is we've started a website. I think this is the third year we've had the website now. It's just womeninbaseballweek.org. We can put this in our notes and you can find it everywhere.
It'll also be down in the description of the video.
Which will be awesome. We use the hashtag Women in Baseball Week every year. It's a long hashtag, but when you're searching for it, guess what? You're only going to find content related to what the week is. So visiting the website is a really good start. There we've listed and we've improved the website every year too. So it started as just here's what the week is, and some nice pictures. And then it was, pictures of what we did last year to give people more ideas, because that's the first thing people will ask me is they're either, I don't know how to participate, or yeah, I can't participate, I can't go anywhere. And it's like, you don't have to go anywhere. You can literally do anything, that's related to women in baseball. So what this would do is give people a lot of good ideas of like, here's what some other places have posted. Here's what they've done. If you're a library and look, you can't do a recommended reading list or you can't do a full-on display, you can just highlight something that's in your collection, and use it as an excuse to just pull people in. And then we're going to see a lot of that this year too, especially from libraries, and I'm super excited about it. So that's what's great about the website. And then we started adding, this calendar of events, schedule of events that honestly is getting to be kind of a lot for one person to do. So we're either going to rethink how we do the calendar or just bring in some more people on the team. And that's a good problem to have, right? Because it's more tournaments, it's more exhibits. This year is crazy because League of Their Own anniversary, half of the calendar of events is screenings of A League of Their Own, literally all over the world, which is amazing. A lot of us owe a lot to that movie for bringing us here to this point in the first place. So that's the most exciting thing about it. We keep adding resources. We've added a page about Shirley Berkovic, which I know we'll talk about later, how much Shirley means to a lot of us. And then, yeah, the new exciting project, which is still a work in progress, is this what we're calling the Women's Baseball Heritage Trail. And it's a map of historic sites, locations, exhibits, things you want to visit. Is if you were on a road trip. I saw this get posted so much last year, and this is an idea I talked about with IWBC members and Sabre members for a long time, and then it just became so sit down and do it. And that's what I've been doing, the past couple months is doing that. So by the time this airs, that should be part of the Women in Baseball Week website, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and you can always use a lot of help for people to update it, to make recommendations and corrections and anything else, because none of this is a finite project, right? It's all going to grow. It's going to keep growing. There's going to be new teams, new exhibits, new events all over the place.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think a heritage trail is definitely, I don't know, that might play into the historian and the librarian in me, but but you mentioned A League of Their Own. So A League of Their Own turned 30 this year. And it seemed to be a really nice way to kick off the run up to Women in Baseball Week. I know the International Women's Baseball Center has done a couple of events, even an in-person event down in Rockford. And I know that every time I've talked to you in the last couple of weeks that you have been working on, Women in Baseball Week stuff. So what do we want to go with there? You said that we've got showings that are coming up this during Women in Baseball Week, but we've also had an entire month of events and articles, and that also plays into the premiere of the Prime Video show, A League of Their Own, that launches in August.
Yeah, just a little bit going on. So can I ask, did you see the first episode while you were in Rockford at the screening?
I did. So Amazon came in and did a huge festival, a street festival outside the historic Coronado Theater, and then they played the full first episode of the show, and then did a quick Q&A that was hosted by Marla Hooch herself, Megan Kavanaugh, with the main cast, and of course Maybelle Blair, the co-creators. And I have actually already taken the 12th off, August 12th, to sit and binge the entire show.
As you should, right? So last year I was fortunate to meet some of the producers, writers of the show. They were here in Pittsburgh. This was before they were still scouting some locations and working out, who they were going to hire and things. And I got to meet with them. We got to talk some baseball history. I got to look up a few things for them, and it was cool. And then they filmed a lot of the show. They basically built the stadium for the Peaches right down the road from me. It's in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, which is not far from McKeesport, where actual All-American tryouts were held, in the late 40s. So it's really cool when you're doing historical things, where history happened. So I'm super excited about that. There's so much you can say about League of Their Own. This my whole interest in women in baseball is going to go back to the original film and that impact that it had on a lot of us in the 1990s. Yes, we date ourselves when we say that, but the movie's for everybody of all ages. So a lot of the filming took place where I grew up in Western Kentucky, Southern Indiana area. So it was a huge deal when Hollywood comes to town, for a few months. And at the same time, I had this budding interest in World War II, the 1940s. And so while the movie was a lot of fun, it just opened up this whole new chapter of American history I wasn't aware of. And I don't think many people were aware of it back then. This was pre-widespread internet days. So, I'm like 13 or something, and I set off learning as much as I can about the league in a very old school way, lots of visits to the public library, or maybe they had one book that was about the league that had just come out, brand new, at this point. So I'm searching articles and magazines, mostly from the 80s. This coincides too with, a growing interest in learning more about like the Negro leagues and women's sports in general, and just the unknown stories, the underdogs, any marginalized groups of people that have been kept out of the mainstream, not only in sports, but in other ways. It's the whole overall culture. This has always appealed to me. You and I have talked about this a lot. It's appealed to a lot of us. Learning about them, learning more about those shared experiences and the cultures that developed within them. So at least for me, 30 years later, here I am. And I love that you bring up Marla Hooch herself, because when I was in Rockford in 2018 for the Peaches anniversary, I had to drive Megan Kavanaugh back to her hotel room just after a morning event. And, oh, Ryan's here. Can you take Megan back to her hotel? And it's like, yes. And I completely nerded out with her and just told her basically everything I told you about, my relationship with the movie. And I hope you know how important this is for so many people, because, yeah, it was a big deal. All that to say, here we are in year 6 now, Women in Baseball Week. It's been very exciting for me to watch how the event has evolved and grown each year. Like I talked about, first of all, we had, the libraries and museums posting about it. And then, like the next year we started getting minor league teams who were posting, their staff. Here's who works here. We can't live without them. They're great. Women in baseball, is there. It's everywhere. It really is. If you look for it, you know where to find it. Then you start having major league teams post about it. You start getting more podcasts in the year after that. And especially too, I thought when the pandemic hit in 2020, like, okay, this is done. There's not going to be anything. No, like people adapted as we did with everything else. And we just saw a lot more presentations, book clubs, all kinds of things spring up. So it's just really great. Some teams use it to recruit players or raise funds, which is totally fine. We've had artists and businesses promote their work and merchandise during the week. International increase in podcasts and interviews. It just keeps growing, and seemingly the individuals and organizations involved are served well by their participation. So yeah, it's nothing anyone's forced to do. They just want to be there because they do. Last year, I think we both participated. I think IWBC hosted a virtual race fundraiser, which was a lot of fun. I got a team together here in Pittsburgh, and we and one day we walked to the new Josh Gibson mural that's over in Homestead, which is just it's a great piece of art and fit in perfectly with what the goals were for that that fundraiser, which honored and educated the public about Tony Stone. So here another completely original idea. But A League of Their Own, yeah, both the 30th anniversary of the film and the new series that's set to premiere this month. These are taking place everywhere that I've seen. Summer festivals, movie theaters, minor league games. It's just great participation throughout the country. And we're finishing up Baseball for All Nationals, which as I'm seeing right now is going very well. Looks like another record-breaking year. They get like 500 people at these tournaments, and they break the record every year. So
yeah, and this year, that one was even a scary moment because they had to change venues extremely quickly, and it is not easy to find a space that can hold 500 girls that range from the ages of 10 to 18. I know that the IWBC the IWBC sponsored BFA for 3 years in Rockford, and they just outgrew Rockford. So but you had mentioned the introduction of these really cool ideas when we were so afraid that 2020 was essentially going to halt us in our pursuit of doing these things, especially because we get out there in the summer, we go to these events, we interact with people, and that just wasn't happening. But like you said, we adapted. We came up, the IWBC, came up with this podcast, which, this is our second full year. We launched for Women in Baseball Week in 2020, and we've continued it for the most part since then. But just kind of interacting more virtually. And 2020 2021 we did a mile in her spikes, and we had dedicated it to Tony Stone. And we got to learn about the Negro Leagues a little bit and Tony herself. And I believe we're doing it again this year. I'm not positive. I can't keep track of things, but I believe that we are. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And that we're dedicating it to Shirley Berkovic, which I think you have some ideas on how to better honor her in Women in Baseball Week too.
Oh my gosh, yes. So Shirley is the whole driving force between or for Women in Baseball Week this year, I should say. And if anyone doesn't know, Shirley was just an amazing person who we lost at the end of March this year. And it's a very sad thing for those of us who knew her and worked with her, were friends with her, but more so, I think, for just the whole worldwide baseball community. This is a huge loss. So yeah, there's just seemed like this was the very bare minimum thing I could do, right? For our friend and hero, as I like to say, Shirley Berkovic. For anybody who doesn't know, she was a former infielder, outfielder, pitcher, just straight up utility player in the AAGPBL from 1949 through 51. She signed to play pro ball at age 16, right? And she was nicknamed Hustle for her boundless energy on the field and her intensity, and she could fill in every position except catcher. She always, had to make sure I knew that for the record, and I didn't play catcher. But So after baseball, she works for Pacific Bell for 30 years, and she was a very active collaborator on all kinds of like women's and baseball projects, and including the All-American Players Association, that started in the 80s with just reunions and things, but then there was just all kinds of educational outreach and different events that they had planned. So for the past 30 years, I think it's hard to miss Shirley Berkovic supporting and advocating for girls and women in baseball at events like the Women's Baseball World Cup and BFA Nationals that we've already mentioned. Red Sox fantasy camp, she was everywhere, and she was a founding member of the IWBC, which is where I first met her really, and talked to her, and was instrumental in bringing countless events to Rockford and really all over. So yeah, this year's theme we're calling A Year to Hustle. It's dedicated to Shirley Hustle Berkovic, just our friend and a friend to the worldwide baseball community. And it's not just for her, it is also just a reminder to hustle this year, right? Make it a year to hustle, dedicate a year to it. It's to stay active, it's to follow through on goals, it's to create more opportunities, it's to make up for recent years of lost time, whether it's pandemic or anything else. So yeah, I don't know, I could probably just talk about her all day, but
I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of people that share that sentiment. I think like a lot of people, the last couple of years have been big losses for all of us. And I actually ended up losing both of my mother's parents and my beloved animal at the end of 2021 last year. But discovering that we had lost Shirley too is really what just broke me. And I think that we're seeing a lot of really great ways to memorialize her. And a lot of it's just sitting and talking about how great Shirley was and the work that she put in and the things that she was capable of doing. And the ways that we want to make sure that we continue to honor her. I know that IWBC president Cat Williams, she was mad we hadn't gotten there yet, that Shirley wasn't going to get to see it. But that just puts fire under us to work even harder. It's why the IWBC is introducing the Hustle Award, which isn't just about players. Again, it recognizes everybody involved with the sport and those people that are putting in that work. I know me personally, I'm presenting at a couple of conferences at the end of the year, and that is really the focus is remembering her, not in that boring, stuffy way that people seem to think that history is, but in really reaching out and asking people, what is your Shirley memory? What do you remember of her? And of course, it all ties back to baseball, but it doesn't have to, because that was just the type of woman that she was. And, if you weren't hurting anybody and you were just trying to live your life, Shirley was the best person to sit there and support you through it. And if you wanted to catch a game with her, well, that was an experience to have too. So I'm really excited to see kind of what that remembrance ends up looking like through Women in Baseball Week.
Yeah, I think it's going to be ongoing too. There's a difference in missing somebody who's gone and really, I think, feeling the loss. I think those are two separate things, and that you can do both of them. We can all miss her. She was a great person, so super sweet and everything. And then there is just the loss of everything that she worked for. There's her support that she would give you, both just like the personal and professional. I think I would have known her going back to the 90s, with just corresponding about All-American matters, membership and things like that. But I met her again at the 2015 All-American reunion, which is where I believe I met you also. Yep. The very first day, right when I walk in, we start talking. And then again at my first IWBC event, which I think you were also at, was the Ruth Hartman tournament in 2016 that was in Reading, Pennsylvania. And then next thing you know, like doing work for the IWBC, you know, including work with Shirley closely, contacting her. She would always have the most amazing stories about going to Forbes Field when she was younger, and then, you know, just playing on the Colleen's and Sally's tour, and she would just work these things in. And she was always quick to ask me about the weather in Pittsburgh, you know, especially, you know, in the winter months. And I'd have to be like, well, Shirley, it's terrible because it's not great. And she's like, her response was like, why do you think I moved to California 60 years ago? So she was fun. And honestly, I'm really glad we're doing this right now, because I think it was a year ago, right about now, that I actually last saw her in person. You know, she was on this, basically this East Coast tour of the East, with Maybelle Blair. And they were, I think they were at the Red Sox, and then they were at Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and then they were at Baseball for All Nationals, and then they were coming through Pittsburgh to check out some of the filming for the new League of Their Own. So yeah, they were here, and I remember Donna Cohen texting me and just, we're in town for like a day. Do you want to meet up and have breakfast at like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday? And I'm like, of course I do. And you know, she was working still that morning. She's busy, and I think Maybelle was sleeping in, but I did see her later. So it was just big fancy hotel, restaurant, completely empty. Shirley Berkovic on a July Sunday morning. And that's great. And like, it doesn't make me sad to think about it, because it's nothing but a positive thing. But I do miss her, and I hope that everything that we're doing, you know, lives up to honoring her appropriately. I think she'd be thrilled about it. She was like the kindest, gentlest person, you know, you could ever meet. And I think she would be very happy and proud of like the work you're doing and the plans you're making, and what IWBC is doing. And so yeah, it was a no-brainer to dedicate this year to her.
Well, we are glad to continue to remember her, honor her even through our loss. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to seeing how some of it comes through. You know, I can't say enough good things about Shirley either. But it does look like we're coming a little bit to the end of our talk for this afternoon. Is there anything else you want to throw out there about Women in Baseball Week, or some of the work that you've been doing with women's baseball before we get into our last little bit?
I just want people to visit the site, participate on social media. There's no wrong way to participate in this. To thank you and for all you've done for the week over the years, and for everyone to get involved. It is a very non-committal, easy thing to participate in that can really have the biggest results that you didn't anticipate. Like our network expands constantly. I have friends all over the world now who we trace back to, well, we started talking over Women in Baseball Week. So that alone, I'll take it, and it's awesome. So yeah, please join us. It'd be great.
Well, speaking of things with commitments, the last little thing that we do want to talk about. So this would be this episode is actually celebrating the second anniversary of our podcast, which, Ryan, you have been a huge supporting factor in. You and I have served on the podcast committee for its entirety. And unfortunately, we are going to have to let everybody know that we are taking a small hiatus as we kind of look at how we're going to continue to approach our digital content. You know, we love these great long form conversations, but they take a lot of work. And unfortunately, a lot of the International Women's Baseball Center is fully volunteer work. So it is very difficult to continue to produce. It's why we kind of stopped doing it month by month. But we wanted to make sure that we kind of stuck where we started. And so we have kind of done an update the last couple of years with Women in Baseball Week, which is how we kicked off. And I really do want to thank you for your help on that. Your help in continuing to collaborate with me and reminding me that I'm as much of a professional as you are when I question the things that I'm doing. And again, that you were willing to come and sit down with me and talk for a little bit. I always love talking baseball, and I quite enjoy talking baseball with you. So thank you so much for joining me, Ryan.
Well, thank you. I think everybody who knows us both knows we're kind of twins in that we're interested in the same things, and we'll talk about baseball. And we studied history, and we went to library school. And we did all other things that kind of at the same time. So yeah, it's only fitting. I'm really excited about everything that you're working on with the conference presentations and even this podcast. And this isn't even a sad thing. It's we just know how to manage our resources better. We've talked to some incredible people. Not surprisingly, half of them are writers. So there's your library influence, but like there's some amazing conversations you have, and they're all on the YouTube channel. And yeah, I still revisit them from time to time, and it's a lot of good work going into it. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, and we're hoping to maybe even be able to dedicate some resources to get them beyond our YouTube channel. Hopefully, get them onto podcast platforms themselves. That is just not my expertise, so I'll be consulting with some colleagues to hopefully to take that step. But yeah, no, it is amazing how much we twin sometimes, and it's really good to have that, you know. You mentioned a couple of times, you know, we met at All Americans reunion, and I will never forget that because you were sitting looking at baseball cards, or maybe I was looking at baseball cards, and we sat down and we talked for like 3 hours about the Holocaust because we are history nerds. You know, and it's always really interesting to kind of hear from you, whether it's about baseball or some of our similar interests. And so it was really great to kind of get to sit and talk to you about this brainchild of yours that is Women in Baseball Week, and continuing to get it out there and work on it. So thank you again for joining us, and we will continue to celebrate for the rest of the week and beyond with the Women in Baseball.
That's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Are you interested in keeping up with Ryan and Women in Baseball Week? Check out womeninbaseballweek.org or the Women in Baseball Week Facebook page, or connect with Ryan on Twitter at Ryan G. Woodward. You can also keep up with his work through his Linktree, Ryan GW. While you're at it, you can keep up with the IWBC at IWBC4Me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you're interested in becoming a member or are interested in making a donation to support our continued work, please visit our website at internationalwomensbaseballcenter.org. If you liked our episode and are curious about our other digital content, don't forget to like and subscribe to IWBC Archive on YouTube. Thank you again for joining us for Step Up to the Sport, and thank you again to Ryan for this conversation. Keep an eye out for new and upcoming content, and don't forget to step up to the sport.